Good evening and welcome to a virtual town hall hosted by your 3rd District legislators. Tonight you will be seeing and hearing from Senator Andy Billig and Representatives Timm Ormsby and Marcus Riccelli. Some of you have submitted questions in advance, and the moderator will read those questions to the lawmakers. You may also submit your question live via the chat box, so please submit your questions now and we'll try to answer as many as we can. Before we get started, I'll open it up for some brief opening remarks from your lawmakers. Senator Billig will hopefully be joining us soon, but is currently on the floor of the Senate, working to pass a bill that will help small businesses with a tax reduction and support for low-wage workers who lost their jobs. So first up, we'll go ahead and hear from Representative Timm Ormsby. He'll share a few words. Rep. Ormsby has served the legislature since 2003 and is chair of the Appropriations Committee, where he works with other representatives to write the state operating budget. Go ahead, Representative Ormsby.
Thank you so much, and to our viewers and listeners, thank you for joining in. It's a great opportunity for us to connect. Again, my name is Timm Ormsby, chair of the House Appropriations Committee, and it is my high honor and privilege to work with my seatmates, Senator Andy Billig and Representative Riccelli, and the hard work that they do. We have been consumed at the beginning of the session working on an early action spending plan to provide relief to families, businesses, and communities that are really suffering under the current economic and health pandemic. Really looking forward to your questions, really looking forward to interacting with our constituents. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you, Representative Ormsby. Next, we'll have Representative Marcus Riccelli. Representative Riccelli has served in the legislature since 2012 and is the majority whip for the House Democratic Caucus. He serves on the Healthcare and Wellness, Transportation, Capital Budget, and Rules Committee. So go ahead, Representative Riccelli.
Well, thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity to connect with folks. I'm State Representative Marcus Riccelli, and I'm proud to serve with this great team in the 3rd District with Senator Billig and Representative Ormsby. And we know that a robust democracy can only exist with an active and engaged citizenry. So thank you for joining in, and we really look forward to your questions. You know, I know these are difficult times, and I want you to know that our community's health and safety are my top priority. Our community and state are resilient, but we need to work together to make healthcare access more affordable, make certain we don't let politics infect public health. We need to demand support for our frontline workers and small business recovery. And we need to tackle important issues like ending hunger, increasing digital equity, and ensuring access to affordable housing. I want you to know that I'll always stick up for Spokane, and I know our team will here, that we'll demand our fair share and we'll work to build our economy back, growing it from the middle out. So it's the honor of my life to do this work for this Spokane kid, and I really look forward to your questions. And I want to mention too, Senator Billig's working in the Senate. I know he'll be joining us soon, and he'll just jump right into it, but he's doing the people's work in the Senate right now, and we're happy he's getting some important bills off the floor. So with that, I'll turn it back to our moderator and just thank you for joining us.
Great, thank you. We'll start taking questions now. We do have a few questions that have been submitted ahead of time, and we will take them live. So again, if you have a question for the lawmakers, feel free to just put it in the chat, and we'll be responding to as many as we can. So we'll just go ahead and get it started with our first question. And this is from Elizabeth. And Elizabeth asks, what are you doing to help open up our economy so that small businesses don't continue to suffer? Representative Ormsby, do you want to take that one?
I'll certainly begin. Thanks so much to Elizabeth for the question. What we have right now is this early action package that we've been spending our entire time since session began 2.5 weeks ago, and a week and a half even prior to that, trying to understand the federal relief package and deliver those resources out to communities in the way of public health, but particularly and specific to your question about businesses. Within this package is a small business relief package to provide grants to those struggling businesses that have been shut down by the Stay Home, Stay Healthy order, suffering revenue losses because of lack of activity at their cash registers in their places of business. $240 million is going to be driven out in the next few weeks from the Department of Commerce to those entities to give them a lifeline so that they know that they can keep their head above water during these uncertain times while waiting for that economic opening when it's safe to do so. It is front of mind for us that we are taking care of those small businesses in our communities that are the lifeblood of what makes our community a great one to live, work, and raise a family.
Well, and thank you for that. I just want to say that, small businesses are the economic engine that drive our economy. And so we're consistently looking at ways that we can help provide relief. One of the first bills off the House floor was a tax credit for personal protective equipment for small businesses. And I think we just need to continue to work and look for creative ways that we can help build our economy back and grow it from the middle out. And small business is definitely the economic engine of our state and our nation.
Thank you. And it looks like Senator Billig has joined us from the floor. So I'm going to give him an opportunity to just give a few opening statements. Senator Billig.
Great. Well, hello, everyone. Great to be on with all of you. And I apologize that I'm late. We went a little later than planned on the Senate floor. It's our first real day of voting on bills of the session. It's the third week of session, but it takes just a little bit of time for the bills to move through. And we're really focused this year on recovery. So health, COVID recovery, and economic recovery. And also working on a lot of equity bills and keep protecting clean air and clean water. But today was really about starting that recovery, helping small businesses and workers that have been recently laid off to get the support they desperately need. We passed an important unemployment insurance bill that was sort of the main event. We also passed a bill today that was inspired by some Spokane folks to help make it easier to build lower price condominiums. So some people that don't necessarily want to own a home, but want to realize that dream of owning. They don't want to own a house; they want to own their home, and a condominium makes the most sense and has the potential to add more housing stock to our state. So a bill that worked on, actually a bipartisan bill that I worked on with Senator Padden, passed as well. So I want to get to the question. So that's a brief intro, and look forward to the conversation. Thank you.
Great, thanks. We'll go to another question that was sent him ahead of time, but then we're going to jump right into these questions that are coming in the chat. So keep sending your chat in. We'll get to those. But I did want to get to this question here for Representative Riccelli specifically. And the question is, why does the House Transportation Committee package remain so dependent on the recessive gas tax and not include a progressive road use tax? And that's from Larry. So Representative Riccelli.
Well, thank you, Larry, for the question. I want you to know that I was part of a small group with our transportation chair that listened to stakeholders in more than 90 meetings around the state about how to raise revenue and where to invest it. And I agree with you, no tax is perfect. And I recognize the flaws in the gas tax, yet there just isn't a better alternative right now. As the Everett Herald wrote in an editorial, this gas tax makes sense, but it may be the last one. It's too early to switch to pay by the mile. I've been following our Washington State Transportation Commission with their suggestions. I think we could move quickly to road user charges soon with our public fleets, etc. But you can't fund a transportation package like this entirely with small fees or car tabs. So people asked us for a nexus between the revenue and the spending, and the gas tax has that nexus. And the more you drive, the more you pay. We're investing heavily into multimodal. We're including opportunities to electrify our ferry fleet, etc. And we know that this is not a long-term solution. Cars are getting much better gas mileage and people are switching to electric vehicles. So in the coming years, we'll have a really robust conversation about how to move from the gas tax, but we're interested in encouraging more multimodal opportunities and putting people back to work and investing in preservation and maintenance of what we already have and finishing what we started. So thank you for the question, Larry.
Great, thank you. Did any of the other lawmakers want to respond to that? Just raise your hand and okay. Well, good, because we have a lot more questions that are coming in. And what I think we'll just jump to first is we actually have a question from Doug, Doug is curious about housing legislation and the GMA. And we've actually had a couple of questions about the GMA, about whether climate change will be part of the GMA or what other changes to the GMA will be out there. Anyone particular want to start off on that? Oh, I'll go with that. Go ahead, Representative Ormsby.
Thank you, sir. I will begin just to talk about, I don't have specific information related to Doug's question regarding the GMA, but I can tell you that housing is a huge focus because we know that unless you can start from a safe, comfortable home to begin your day and be there at the end of your day with a roof over your head and a bed under your back, with a meal on the table, that is the best therapy that is that we can think of. The just saw a question pop up about what the GMA is. The GMA stands for Growth Management Act, and it is intended to prevent sprawl from the urban areas and the corresponding the corresponding costs that are associated with moving all those services out into outlying areas and not within the urban growth boundaries, the areas where we would like to see infill and where we'd like to have folks, in the more populated areas. I will say one of the things that I'm working on that I'm very excited about in the housing front is boosting up the document recording fee. A little amount of money that's assessed at the time that folks buy a home or refinance their home, real estate transactions, that will go towards affordable housing. It could be as much as $100 million a year that will keep folks housed that are experiencing housing instability and provide for homes for those folks that are without a home, that are struggling going from couch to couch or struggling living on the streets, to provide them that safe, secure place where they can begin and end their day.
Great, thank you. We've got another question from the chat, and this one's from Lori. Lori asks, what is your sense of support and passage of Rep. Drew Hansen's Public Broadband Act? This is an economic and racial justice issue brought more to the forefront by this pandemic. And I believe that this might even be a bipartisan bill, because I think that maybe in the Senate, it might be a Republican senator who sponsored it. So definitely bipartisan. Who wants to talk about public broadband?
Oh, go ahead, Marcus.
Sure.
Senator Riccelli.
Yeah, thanks. And I look forward to Andy and Tim's comments as well. But, I think the pandemic has shown that we lack where we need to be. We're the technology state, and we need to do more for digital equity. We've seen that in education. We need to see it in healthcare, and we need it for job creation. And I think this is a tool in the toolbox that will open up more access to federal funds that will help us. And we think a lot of times in rural underserved areas when it comes to broadband, but right here in the 3rd district, we have a lot of people that still aren't connected, and from a health equity standpoint, from an education equity, and to give people access to job growth and creating their own wealth by using the internet access. I think we really need to move in this direction. I'm supportive. I think it'll be a tough fight. I think there's a lot of entities out there that don't want this dam to be broken, but I think it's worth leaning into, and I'm excited for the discussion. And at this point, I'm very supportive.
No, I think Representative Riccelli covered it well. It's an important issue. He's on it. So I've got nothing to add. I look forward to the next question.
Great. Let's see here. We do have a question from Kyra, who would like to know, what do you plan to do to improve the divisiveness between Eastern Washington and Western Washington citizens?
Yeah, I can take that one.
Sure.
So, there is definitely contention in politics, all over and in Olympia. But one of the things that surprised me so much when I first got to Olympia 10 years ago, and still sort of amazes me, is the way everybody over here works together. And, there are certainly times when we butt heads, but some of that's on purpose and actually part of the system, because when we have some friction and go back and forth, it actually creates compromise. It creates new ideas. It creates ideas in the middle, and that can be a good thing. So some of that friction and is actually a good thing. But most of what we do here is cooperative. I mean, most of the bills are bipartisan in their votes and their sponsorship. And so, in terms of legislators, there actually is a lot of cooperation. I think it's quite different than the other Washington. In terms of the citizens, I think one here we can sort of be an example, but I actually don't think there's that much divide between East and West when you actually get people together to start talking about the issues. Because the issues that I hear about in Spokane are the same issues I hear about from my colleagues on the West Side that they're hearing from their constituents. It's about jobs, childcare, having affordable access to childcare, good schools, higher education, access to affordable, high quality healthcare, and certainly dealing with this pandemic and having a strong recovery. Those are issues that span the entire state. So I don't know. I guess I push back a little bit on the divide because I don't see it as debilitating. I think it's something we need to be aware of and keep working on. But I think that there's a lot more that we have in common than we have apart.
If I may add, I think that some of these perceptions of the divisiveness are fomented and the flames are fanned by folks with a specific political agenda to create this perception of divide. I can't agree with Senator Billig more about the cooperative nature of what happens, and I think it is our responsibility, and I think we do well in making sure that we get our fair share. I'm happy to go into details if folks have more questions involving that. But this trio of your legislators, we punch above our weight in terms of the ability that we can bring Spokane interests to Olympia and to the legislative process.
Thank you. We have another question here, and this one, it's a longer comment about the homelessness people in Spokane who need protection this winter. And it's from Joan, who asks, what is the state legislature doing to protect homeless people and what can be done? And it's a longer comment in there about, which I think is important to note, is that this person has known several people who have died due to exposure. And so wanted to see which one of you would be interested in talking about that and the investments that our budgets are making and what's happening in that area.
Well, I can say from this First Step Act, which is the House version of utilizing largely federal resources, we are pumping all of that money into our rental system. So those folks that request rental assistance and are approved, the money goes directly to their landlords, to the property owner that is renting to them, in the interest of making sure that some back rent gets taken care of and those folks have the housing stability. Those are folks that are currently housed, but many of them are in unstable positions and potentially could become homeless. For those folks that don't have a home, that are struggling on the streets or surfing from couch to couch, at the beginning, at the top of the program here tonight, just mentioned about trying to protect for those folks currently having housing, but new resources for affordable housing to get folks off the street, to provide them the protections that they do not enjoy, particularly during harsh Spokane weather in the wintertime, to get them into places that are their own home not just shelters and out of the elements, but into their own safe and secure home.
Yeah, I would just like to add too, just today, one of our organizations working with some of our homeless friends took somebody into the hospital for severe frostbite, and we're told as the person was being released, there are no shelter beds available. So let's just start with the crisis scenario. I'd encourage everybody to write the mayor and the city council and really ask them to open up more space for shelter beds. From our standpoint, we've talked multiple times about how we can work to get a day shelter that could also transition into something that could be used for emergency situations. So this is a really pressing issue. I think right now we need to just take this as emergency scenario and do like they did prior, opening up the Spokane Arena, et cetera, to provide crisis shelter.
Great, thank you. We have another question here in the chat. This is from Bob. Bob has asked, how long until we move into the next phase of the latest governor's reopening plan, and asked, are the metrics achievable? Yeah, Senator Billig.
Thank you for that question. I saw an earlier comment where people, I guess our names, on my screen, I see the names for the legislators, but somebody said that they couldn't see them. So I'll just, maybe I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. I'm Andy Billig, so state senator from the 3rd District, which you all probably know is Central Spokane. So Andy Billig, state senator, maybe Marcus and Tim, our 2 representatives, can do the same the next time they talk. In terms of reopening, look, everybody wants to get the economy open and our lives back to normal as fast as we safely can, and including the governor. I've been able to work and talk with the governor quite a bit in the last week or so. And this is a little bit, for those that are on this call, you're gonna get just a little special early news, which is there is gonna be an announcement tomorrow by the governor to adjust the metrics, and there will be some additional flexibility. So anyway, so I'll leave the details for the governor because I think he's still working out the final stuff. But I did want to say that, Spokane and really our whole state has done a very good job. We are one of the safest states in the country when it comes to COVID. It's because we're wearing masks and we're following the social distancing guidelines, because our governor has done a good job in making decisions. But because of that, now we're able to do a little bit of additional opening, and I think we should still be cautious. We're still not out of the woods. The new variants are a concern, but I think that I was on a call with the epidemiologists who do the projections, and it was one of the first times today that I heard a little bit of optimism in their voice. And it's a time not to relax any of the social distancing, especially if we start opening up just a little bit more. But I think for those that are looking for just a little bit more opening and to do it safely, I think you'll be glad with what you hear tomorrow.
Travis? I didn't have anything to add on this one, I think, Senator Billig. This is Representative Marcus Riccelli. I did see in the comments that there was folks disappointed we don't have closed captioning. And let me tell you, we're moving to new methods to get to talk with people, and I will the buck stops at us, and we will work for our future events to have closed captioning, and commit also to seeing what we can do with the video tonight to getting it rebroadcast with closed captioning. Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I appreciate that greatly.
Yeah, and the shared video, the recorded video will have captions to it. Okay. So we are behind on the live, but we are making sure that they are in our recorded video. We have another question, and this one caught my eye. This is from Ralph, who asked about affordable generic prescriptions, wants to know what the legislature is doing on that issue. Representative Riccelli, I know that you are in the healthcare committee and have been working on healthcare issues. You want to start off on that one?
Sure. I mean, one of the things we passed Cascade Care. One of the things that I think we need to do is increase the buying power that we have as a state to draw down prices. And we've done that through PEB, which is the state employees insurance program, through SEB, which is now the Consolidated Teachers Healthcare, and as we grow that through Medicaid, et cetera, I think we can really continue to use that buying power to push to more affordable prices. But we've also done things like mandate the cost of insulin, and that went into effect, and that was a bipartisan bill. We knew too many people, these prices were skyrocketing. Pharmaceutical companies were ripping off citizens, and people were not able to get the drugs they need. So we're looking for those types of things that we can do, but we need to address it more fully and make sure that people have access to prescription drugs. I think it's one of the things in these divided times that everybody is behind, and you're going to see a number of strategies, including some that maybe Senator Billig can talk about that I know are generating in the Senate right now.
Well, it's, affordable healthcare, including pharmaceuticals, is absolutely a priority. Senator Kaiser in the Senate has really taken a lead on this. I think while our state has made a lot of progress in this area, it's also an area where federal leadership will help, because as a country, we can really take some bigger strides if we do this nationally. And so I am also looking and optimistic about the new administration and President Biden being able to help move forward on not just drug transparency, but drug affordability, and to overall help us to control the costs of drugs and healthcare generally.
Thank you. We have another question, and I think I was going to actually read a question that had been submitted earlier, but it looks like Sarah, the person who submitted it, is also in the chat. So I'm going to go ahead and just ask the live question instead. Sarah asks, are you open to adding amendments to Senate Bill 5061 that are going to help protect the employees as opposed to employers? Senator Billig, I think you were just talking about that.
Yeah, so 5061 does a couple things. It has a significant increase in the minimum benefit for employees who have lost their jobs. So it actually does very much help employees. And then it also helps small businesses, particularly, and really businesses that were hit by the pandemic, from dramatic increases in unemployment insurance. They're still going to have increases, but many small businesses that are reeling from the pandemic got notices of 300-400% increases in unemployment benefits, and those are automatically generated to refill the unemployment insurance fund. And what we did today was to be able to make some moves that will spread out that repayment in a way that takes away some of the burden. Look, we're not done. We're not done helping small businesses. We're not done helping employees. But that bill is not the place for additional stuff, because we want to get these minimum benefits raised right away for people that were laid off, and we want to get assistance out to small businesses that are struggling right away. So no, I don't think we should be amending it further, because I think it really does already dramatically help both employees and small businesses. And I think we got to get it passed as soon as possible.
And I would like to compliment Sarah on just the intuitive nature of your question. The thing that kept our head above water for economic activity, for family security, to ease the anxiety that folks are suffering through these uncertain times, was unemployment insurance. That was the thing that put money in people's pockets. It let them interact in the economy and take the stress and strain out of, where is the next paycheck going to come from now that I'm unemployed? How am I going to get shoes for the kids, go to the grocery store and take care of those things? Unemployment insurance was our salvation during the shutdown. And it wasn't, Washington State was not without its problems, believe me. That's something that our office dealt with all day, every day, about making sure that folks got the benefits that they were eligible to get. We really do need to keep that system alive. This is a case, this is making a case for the involvement of government, particularly during these difficult times. That is the one entity that we can go to that has the resources, the wherewithal, and the flexibility to deal with these changing times. And unemployment insurance was the thing that was the single most life-saving, life-stabilizing investment that the state has made. And it it kept our economy chugging along, while not at full bore, to a satisfactory level that will put us in a position to continue forward.
Great, thank you. I just saw a question pop up from Amber. Amber asked, do you support tenant protections such as the Just Cause eviction bill by, I believe, Representative Macri? Who wants to take that one?
I'll be happy to start on that and just be quick. I think that there are 2 House bills and 2 Senate bills that are working in tandem, so to speak. The Just Cause eviction by my friend and colleague, Representative Nicole Macri, goes along with that document recording fee bill that I was talking about earlier. Very proud to work with her in this housing space. She does this in her day job. She's an expert on being able to provide stability for folks in tough circumstances, whether it's substance abuse, mental health issues, domestic violence, etc., to get them in stable housing. And there are also 2 bills in the Senate involving eviction, involving tenant protections and the ability for tenants to be able to count on stable rents going into the future.
Thank you. Well, now we have a question from Abby. Abby is a high schooler and wants to know. She says that she's only one of a handful of the students there that actually does their remote schooling homework, and wants to know if you have a plan to help students get back on track when they do have school. And I think that this is a question for anyone who wants it. Senator Billig, are you? Yeah, great.
Glad to do it. And just again, because people were asking who we are, Andy Billig, the state senator from the 3rd District. So that's a great question about, learning loss. And there's kids, not only, we know learning loss, it's well defined. We see it from summer learning loss. So there have been a lot of studies on it for over 100 years. And what we have now is not just summer learning loss, but like this extended learning loss time. And we need to also help kids who are having trouble adjusting in other ways. They haven't had their extracurricular activities. They haven't had their social interaction with other kids. So this is like the worst learning loss catch-up situation we have. So a few things that we're doing. One, in the latest a bill that actually Representative Ormsby is leading on, it's a recovery budget bill that is fast-tracked that we're going to get out here within the next 10 days and pass and get to the governor's desk. It has support for, I think probably the representatives talked about it before I got on, but it's got support for rental assistance and childcare and a bunch of really important emergency needs. It also has money for school districts for learning loss, and they have to come up with a plan and submit that plan, and then we're going to provide resources to help with those plans. So that's one thing we're doing. The other thing we're going to do is to keep helping to get schools open faster. And Spokane has really been a leader on this. When you look at what Spokane Public Schools has done, they went slow and safe on reopening. It's exactly the way to do it. And they've shown that kids can get back into school safely. And it's not something we should rush because, everybody's health is so important. But they've shown how to do it. We're also providing support for school districts to help get the school districts that aren't bringing the kids back to bring them back sooner and safely, not everybody back at once. And that will also help at least stop the learning loss. And then we'll use the resources and plans that are in the works to help kids catch up. But this is going to be an impact that we're going to see for a generation of the learning loss. And it's a real significant and sad result of the pandemic.
Representative Riccelli, were you look like I thought maybe you were going to ask a question, you were going to answer there?
I think Andy did a nice job and appreciated his thorough answer. And I think maybe move on to questions. We got a bunch of them.
Yeah, we do. So we've actually had a couple of questions kind of popping up here. But one that we've actually had asked is about some of the tax proposals. So we've had a couple of questions about the capital gains tax, about the gas tax that was included, One has basically said that the taxes will hurt the lower income and fixed income folks. It cited that it could be up to $1 more for gas, and then on top of the capital gains tax. So, one of you interested in answering questions about some of the tax proposals? Senator Billig.
Yeah, I can start, and I'm sure Representative Ormsby and Representative Riccelli have comments as well. First of all, proposals don't mean that they passed into law. So there's a lot of ideas that people put out there. So just because somebody's put out an idea, sometimes it's something they're really passionate about, that they think they're going to pass and they want to pass. Sometimes it's to start a conversation. And so I wouldn't get too concerned just because somebody introduced a bill, because that's a pretty low bar to introduce a bill. But I think there are revenue options that we potentially should consider, not ones that will potentially hit low-income people, as you said, and I agree with you that we shouldn't do tax increases that hit low-income people directly. We have the most unfair tax code in the state. I used to say we were 50th out of 50 in tax fairness. We're actually 51st out of 51 now because the District of Columbia has a better tax system than we do. So if you're rich in Washington state, you pay a fraction of the taxes as a percent of your income than you do if you're poor. It is the worst in the state. So one of the things we want to try to do is to invest in things that are going to help people to succeed, that are going to help all of you and your families, things like affordable childcare and affordable health care, and pay for it in a way that makes the tax code more fair. So for instance, a capital gains tax that started at $250,000 of profit in a year. So it means you start paying this tax if you have profited more than $250,000 in a year on the sale of, usually it's stocks and bonds. Homes, personal homes are excluded. So that's just one idea that's out there. So that's an example of something we could use to invest in real services to help our community to move forward, that actually pay a return for taxpayers and individuals, and make our tax code more fair, make our state better for everyone, including low-income people.
And I'll go ahead and chime in. Timm Ormsby, I forgot to mention that since the outset of the program. I just want to give a wave and a salute to my daughter and granddaughter who have joined us here virtually. I'm excited, but now I'm a little bit nervous about messing things up. But on the tax issue, when it comes to capital gains is not in any fashion directed at anybody on the fixed income, low income level. As Senator Billig mentioned, this is a threshold of high annual income and above. There are many exemptions, including rental real estate. If you own rental real estate, 4 or fewer units are not subject to it. Any retirement income, the exemptions are as long as your arm. So this is directed at those folks that are making money, profit during the year, largely on their stock investments, their stock portfolios. This isn't income that's earned by a paycheck. It is those things that are passive investments that earn them a great deal of money. There is also interest in looking at folks that in this state that has done extremely well during this healthcare pandemic, that have major profits, even though many sectors of our economy have suffered. Many have thrived and thrived beyond belief. And there is a serious consideration being made to making sure to right that upside down tax code that Senator Billig spoke of, that does not serve our low income and fixed income individuals well, and moderate income individuals as well. If we could make that system more fair, much like Idaho has been able to do, we'd be in much better shape and provide a lot more equity to your average Washington state taxpayer.
Thank you. We have another question that's come up here about helping folks that have been struggling and were unemployed, particularly those that are immunocompromised, were struggling before the pandemic kicked in. Nicolette has asked this question and essentially wants to know if there's any relief package or services specifically for those folks that maybe have been struggling since before COVID-19 became a national or international global pandemic?
At the risk of dominating some time here, I want to go back to this unemployment insurance thing. The best thing we can do for folks is get money in their pocket to ease the anxiety and the uncertainty of living in these uncertain times. That's what the unemployment insurance did. We're also looking to provide necessary relief for folks on fixed incomes with lack of access to health care. So this early action bill that we've referenced a few times uses almost entirely federal money to provide immediate relief in these areas. It is kind of the things that you would do when you would go into a disaster area like a hurricane hitting the Bahamas. You take care of food, shelter, and health. Those are your number one priorities, and those were the things we focused on. We also passed through to school districts money that came from the federal government that they can use to stabilize their financial woes because they just have not had the enrollment or the use of transportation dollars, and to keep those folks from becoming unemployed. So we're really focused on those that are on the cusp of disaster, really focused on stabilizing their life situation, providing to ease some of those burdens. I can remember as a very young parent, 20 years old with a kid, not certain how we were going to pay the next month's rent, let alone cobble together first and last month's rent and damage deposit. And I came from a very supportive family with a whole network of support. Not everyone has those advantages. That has been our entire focus in this early action package. And it has been the Democrats' focus in the legislature in large part, and will continue to do so, because this pandemic has laid bare the inequities that are suffered by low-income folks and folks of color, and we need to right that wrong.
Thank you. We actually have the Herzog Family Center is asking some questions, and we've had a couple of people who are really interested in this question about teachers having access to the COVID vaccines. And so one of the questions here says, how can our lawmakers prioritize teachers for having access to the COVID vaccines? And Representative Riccelli, since you're on the healthcare committee, maybe you could take this one, and then if other folks want to, just raise your hand.
Yeah, thank you. Let me start by saying, really, we're seeing kind of the fallout of not having a national strategy sooner, because the real answer to all this is supply, supply, supply. And we're hurting right now. But we need to have the systems in place to protect our most vulnerable first. And I think that there's a lot of really good arguments for our child care workers and our educators who are on the front lines, along with our folks in essential services, grocery workers, et cetera, to see how we balance that. I think, we need to look and really come together on a state-supported strategy that's regionally coordinated and locally implemented. I'm pleased to see that President Biden has enacted the Defense Productions Act, et cetera, because this is all hands on deck. And really, the first answer is we need to get more supply of the actual vaccine. And then we need to be smart about it afterwards. We still need to mask up, wash our hands, et cetera. But I would agree that we need to look at how we're making sure our frontline workers, how our educators, and how our folks who are most vulnerable are being protected. And I think that that's a balance. And I think we need to work together as a community and as a state and as a legislature to figure that out.
And if I can say, just because in the chat there's been some focus on the education community and teachers and school employees and access to the vaccination, the governor responded very recently to a bipartisan call to elevate and prioritize our education community relative to vaccinations. He has done that. They've adjusted the prioritization. We know that in order for schools to reopen, they have to be safe environments, and getting our adults that work in the education system vaccinated has evolved into becoming a priority. We know that needs to happen in tandem with reopening schools, and the governor has just recently reassessed those priorities and made teachers and those working in the education environment priorities to receive the vaccination. We just need help from the federal government to get those vaccinations delivered so that they can be administered to everyone that's in those top tiers of necessary individuals needing to be vaccinated.
I just wanted to add, I think this is a really important question because vaccines it's not just a health priority, it's also an economic priority, and it's an education priority. As soon as we get more people vaccinated, we're going to be able to do all of, much more quickly do all of the things that we want to do. But I wanted to respond because I saw a clarifying question in the chat where they're asking, is it a state decision or a federal decision? Well, the federal government gives guidance, and then the states have the ability to make adjustments from that guidance. So our state has generally gone with the federal guidance and made a few tweaks here and there. And I think, as Representative Ormsby and Representative Riccelli indicated, teachers were moved up. But I think one of the things, and teachers are getting vaccinated right now, as long as they're over 50 in a multi-generational home or over 65, they're getting vaccinated right now, and then they're going to be in the next tier. But I think one of the things that's hard is, we have bus drivers and grocery store workers that are working every day in dangerous situations. So there's a limited supply right now coming from the federal government. So yes, do I think teachers should get vaccinated? Absolutely. But I also think bus drivers should be vaccinated. And I think that grocery store workers should be vaccinated. And I think everybody should get vaccinated. So it's about teachers should be prioritized as essential workers. And they are. The governor made that adjustment. But they're not going to get prioritized ahead of people who are in the most likely category to die if they get COVID, which are going to be older citizens, or they're not going to get prioritized over other essential workers. They're going to be with all of them. And I was very concerned about the vaccine rollout originally. I've been extremely impressed in the last week as the kinks have gotten worked out, and the number of vaccines being administered has gone up dramatically. Our sort of ratio of vaccines given out compared to other states we're now in the top half of the states. So it looks like things are going much faster, which I'm gratified to see. And I think we're well on our pace to do 45,000 vaccines a day within the next week or two, which is even faster than had been anticipated.
Thank you. We have a question that I missed earlier. So Larry, if you're still watching, I apologize. Larry asks, what will the legislature do this session to help deal with the climate crisis?
I'm glad to start.
Yeah.
Thank you for that question. I think, we all have an interest in protecting the earth and protecting our clean air and our clean water. And so there has been a big legislative focus on that over the last probably 3 years, I'll say, for sure, some really dramatic legislation. But we need to do more. We need to do more because what we decide to do here in Washington makes a difference for what happens in the environment, but also because we need to be leaders for the rest of the country and for the world as well. And a few of the options that we have, there's a low carbon fuel standard proposal that would help to reduce emissions from transportation, which is one of the largest causes of greenhouse gas emissions. And there's also some other proposals with called like cap and invest, which would be ways to create a market-based solution to lower greenhouse gases and emissions. So those proposals are out there. They're being worked on. I think we will make progress this year because we need to. And it's one of the things I hear about more than any other issue, probably from constituents. And it's vital when we think about the earth that we want to hand down to future generations that we take action now.
And if I can just do a shout out to our young folks in our community and communities across the state, this country, and across the world, frankly, have been leading on this issue because they know their future is impacted. In the House Democratic Caucus, we have 4 filters by which we're reviewing important legislation. 2 of them involve the pandemic. One is just the public health interests that are involved in that, but also the economic recovery component. items 3 and 4 are racial equality and viewing all the things that we do through a lens that accounts for equity and accounts for treating all folks just in the way that we pledge to the flag every day, to have access to liberty and justice for all. And finally, climate and all those impacts. I really am going to have to say we really need to acknowledge the hard work of folks that may not even be old enough to vote, that know how important this is going to be in the future. And I think that it's up to us to be responsive to those calls, for us to get our act together in this day and age to preserve this planet's ability and our children and grandchildren's ability to thrive as we've been able to thrive.
I'll just add that, just is for the climate is not justice. This is an existential threat. And, I am concerned for my young children, for the children and grandchildren. It's not good enough to just say we're trying kind of to leave this world a little bit better than we got it. It's not good enough. And so Washington should certainly lead the way. And there's a lot of benefits to that as well, including economic benefits in a green economy and green jobs. So I'm excited. I think we have a lot of enthusiasm in the Democratic caucuses and very much ready to put us in front with some of these policies on climate justice.
And if I can just add quickly, science leads the way. Science leads the way on climate. Science leads the way on our reactions in the public health arena. We have to take it seriously. We've got to rely on folks who did their studies and whose very careers and existence surrounds tackling some of these issues with the credibility and the credence of the science that's behind it, and paying attention to that and adhering to those conclusions to the best of our ability.
Thank you. We have a question from Zeke, who wants to know, now that you're in a couple weeks of the legislative session, do you have thoughts about ways folks on the East Side can engage in the legislative process? And Representative Riccelli, I see you nodding your head, so I'm gonna let you take that one.
Yeah, there hasn't been a lot of silver linings to COVID, but this is certainly one of them, how people east of the Cascades can participate in a remote session. It's never been easier to give remote testimony virtually. It's very easy. You can go to ledge.wa.gov. I know that our offices will be sending out follow-up information and continually updating folks on the ease in which they can do that. It does double back with one of our issues with creating more digital equity, for sure. But too many times, busloads of people I represent had been headed over and turned around at the Cascades. People aren't able to afford to, give a whole day up of work, and so being able to sign up, you can sign up just in support. You can leave written comments. You can also now very easily virtually testify. And our offices are really excited about ways that we can help you all engage and make sure that we have voices from all over our state participating. It's never been easier. And it's one of the silver linings that I'm really excited about. And I know my seatmates are as well.
Yeah, I was a little slow coming to this realization. I would just credit our good friend and Senator Andy Billig for leading the charge. And just based on my age and experience, new things become a challenge. And I had not imagined how we were going to deal with it. And some of the things that I thought were going to be a challenge in this interactive forum using virtual, before the pandemic hit, I was concerned about how we might be able to do it. It has turned out that my fears were not grounded. They were not based, on what we've seen. One of the challenges is going to be, though, on bills that have a high level of interest by the public. If 700 people sign up and want to testify, we are not going to be able to hear from 700 people. So how do we, in a fair and equitable fashion, decide how we give voice to the wide demographic, geographic, and other interest groups who deserve to have their voice heard? We struggle with that, and I'm working with my Republican counterpart on the House Appropriations Committee to review, after every hearing and every committee action that we take, how can we better provide this access to people and make sure that all viewpoints are heard and that people have good opportunity to provide, if they're not able to testify, that they can send in their comments and have it be a part of the official record.
All right, thank you. I think we have time for another question here. We have a question for Emily, this came in, I think, a few minutes ago. Emily says that 30% of families don't have access to affordable childcare, which disproportionately impacts women and their careers in our community. What is being done to support the childcare sector and families? And Senator Billig, was I seeing you raise your hand there?
Yeah, no, that's great. I love it when we get childcare and early learning questions. This is such a priority. It was a priority before the pandemic and a crisis, affordability and access to childcare. And the thing about investing in high quality early learning and high quality childcare is it has this quadruple return. So you help a kid to change the trajectory of their life for the better. You actually, you help employees so they can go to work and feel comfortable that their kids are taken care of. So workers, you help employers because their workers are able to go to work and work comfortably and not be distracted and worried about their kids. And then the fourth one that you may not know about, but there's been a lot of studies like over and over, if high quality early learning and childcare actually pays a financial return to the community, to the taxpayers, because early learning helps kids later in life. Very well documented. It's the #1 intervention to keep people out of prison. It's the best intervention for health, positive health outcomes. It's the best intervention for college and high school graduation, and it's the best intervention for just productive citizens later in life. So it is an absolute priority. Your question was, what are we doing? So we've got some emergency grants going out. We've already done some. We've got another $50 million going out in the bill that's working through the legislature right now to help providers and families immediately. And then there's a bill called the Fair Start Act, and it's Representative Sen is the leader in the House, and Senator Claire Wilson in the Senate. And that bill would be a historic step forward for families and children in childcare and early learning. It would increase the reimbursement rates so providers can provide more spots and have a real business to survive, sustainable business, and it would help families dramatically because it would expand access and also increase the eligibility level so that even families starting in the middle class as well as low-income families would have access to subsidized care. So that's a high priority for Senate Democrats, and I know for House Democrats as well, and hopefully we're going to make some significant progress this year.
On behalf of Senator Andy Billig, I want to thank that questioner for getting right to. I challenge anyone that's on this call or anyone anywhere to provide an issue that Senator Billig can't bring back to early learning and getting kids off to a good start. This is, I didn't need any convincing, but he's made a strong case throughout his entire legislative career. And while I was a believer, Andy has really reinforced the necessity to getting kids off to a good start.
Great, thank you. And I think that we are basically at the end of our time here. And so I want to thank everyone who had a chance to ask a question. Before I turn it over to the lawmakers for some closing remarks, just wanted to let you know that we will be sharing contact information in the chat so that you can reach out to the member offices if you have any questions that didn't get answered, or if you thought of one just as we were wrapping up. Please feel free to reach out and they'll get back to you as quick as they can. So what I'll do is I'll go ahead and turn it over for some closing remarks, starting with Senator Billig, and then we'll go to Reps Ormsby and Riccelli in that order. Senator Billig.
Thank you so much. Thanks to everybody for the great questions and for the dialogue. This worked out great. We had talked about it that because again, as sort of a silver lining of COVID, normally we do one town hall a year, a session, because we got to travel back to Spokane. But since we can do it virtually, we're going to do more. So look for more of these. We want your input. And in the meantime, we want to hear from you. I mean, we work for you. We can only do a good job of representing you if we hear from you. So our emails are easy to find. Just Google our names, Andy Billig, State Senate. Our email, andy.billig@leg.wa.gov. Hopefully somebody can put that in the chat for everybody to see, but we're easy to find on a web search. And I want to hear your ideas, your questions. And if you have any problems with state government, another thing we do in our offices is to help people with constituent services. So we might be able to help you. Thank you.
Yes, and thank you. I can't say enough. This whole experience has reinforced to me the quality of folks that we have the privilege and honor to represent. The very insightful questions, your depth of knowledge, cutting to the quick. I wish that it happened that quick in the legislative process. This really has reinforced the knowledge base that we have locally, and that is why it is such a great honor and privilege for us to be able to go, virtually go to the legislative session and conduct business on behalf of the good people in our community. I want to thank my seatmates. That is just a privilege and honor to be able to work with these fine gentlemen on behalf of our community, bringing the whole host of skill sets that are required in order to get tough things done. I've been honored to work with them, and even as a bystander watching them work and the things that they've been able to accomplish, I want to reinforce that our job is to hear from you. Please feel free for those folks that didn't get their questions answered to get them to us by hook or by crook. We'll figure out how to get back to you. Hopefully there'll be some instructions at the closing of the program for you to be able to weigh in. Thank you all very much.
Well, I want to echo the sentiments. I just appreciate the engagement. The questions have been wonderful, and I look forward to the active and engagement of all of you in the process. There's so many points to be active and help influence the public policy making process. And again, for a Spokane kid born and raised, this is the highest honor representing. And in these divisive times, I just want you to know that this is what democracy looks like. And we might not always agree, but we can have civil discussions and figure out the best road forward, not for Democrats, not for Republicans, but for Spokane and for the state of Washington. And your input is valued. I want to just close by saying that I really appreciate the work of my seatmates and our team here. And I look forward to you weighing in on a lot of issues, things like public health, things like how we are raising opportunities for people to engage in our workforce and get people back to work. So thank you so much. I want to just look forward to the continued conversation. This isn't goodbye. This is just the start of this important ongoing conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for attending tonight's event. And again, we will be posting contact information in the chat. You can also find that information at leg.wa.gov. Thank you all, and